Nerds, we are talking about The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, Episode 3, Adar. We are going to do a review of the episode and then get into a breakdown of the episode, starting now. Welcome to the Nerd Soul Show. I'm Nathan.
Hey, and I'm Priya.
Hey, so Colin won't be joining us this week. If you saw our review for last week, it's actually, I guess, live now. It went live earlier today. He'll join us next week. So the spoiler-free logline for this episode is Arondir finds himself a captive. Galadriel and Halbrand explore a legendary kingdom, and Elendil is given a new assignment. Elendil is given a new assignment, and Nori faces the consequences. All right. So, Priya, what did you think of this episode?
Despite the log line that you just read, it sounds like it could potentially be a really crowded episode, but to me, I actually found it more focused than the first two in the sense, they do spend a good chunk of the episode on the core storyline, which is really around, where Sauron and we need to find him. And so I do think because they really did use the first two episodes to set up the scenes, to set up the characters, this episode felt a little bit more kind of contained and tighter. Because I know last week we talked about, there was a lot of scenes that probably went on a bit too long and probably more narrative than there needed to be. So I do think that definitely improved for me this week. There's some new characters, which I thought was exciting. Some of the stuff we said last week actually kind of came into fruition, which I thought was pretty cool. And yeah, so I think that I feel like it seems a lot more settled after this third episode. I'll say that. And looking forward to kind of seeing next week more and more so.
Yeah, I like the episode quite a bit as well. I'd probably give it like a 7.75. It was, and maybe because we're going to talk about the legendary kingdom that they explore. So maybe it was just like some of the imagery from there that legendary kingdom that was very impressive that we'll get into when we do the breakdown. It was very cool. So seeing that kingdom and also just doing some research over the last week about that kingdom, it was really cool. I feel like it's difficult for me to gauge the episode like I did last week. Like last week I was more coming in blind because like the last time I saw even the Lord of the Rings movies, where it was like probably a few years ago. Whereas like at this point this week when I watched it, I did a lot of research and I know the kingdom and I know what's going to happen to the kingdom and I know all the different like lineages, and I'm not sure if someone without that information is going to be super excited about all the new people that showed up. Because it's just more people that they have to keep track of. I know who they are now, so it's cool to see where they're gonna go. But like, I could see if someone was just coming in cold, how like it would be a little daunting for them, given all the people that showed up in the last couple episodes, and whether or not they need to pay attention to those people that showed up in the last couple episodes, or if they're not or they're not significant. So yeah, like I said, it's for me. I liked it quite a bit, and also we got a bit more about Sauron and who, like you said, in the main antagonist in this episode. Not that I'm not gonna spoil that, but like we got more about where things are headed. Whereas last week, the second episode, there was a whole lot of potential, whereas there seems to be a direction now.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that. So yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right about like people who don't necessarily know the breadth and the depth of the lore around it. It'll be curious, right? Because even the terminology that they use, like the gravity is very different. I think it feels very different if you know more of the context of when they like when they talk about Valinor, because you only see it for a few minutes at the beginning of episode 1, for example, and now we get to see like yes, this legendary kingdom, which indeed in the books and once you actually read about it, it's super cool to kind of know that context before you see it. And it's very cool to see it on the screen. I wonder how it hits different for someone who's coming in cold.
Yeah, I think that even if you're coming in cold, I mean, I came in cold to like the Fellowship stuff and the giant like statues of like Israel from the Hob. No, well, the giant statues in the Fellowship of the Rings. You know the ones with the hands out that are I think it was like Isidore and his brother, I think, are those two statues, and so like that stuff is still like beautiful to behold. And I didn't know who those were. I didn't know who those were until like last week, earlier this week, and even and it was cool when I saw it, and it's been cool for the last 10 or 15 years that I from I saw. So I think that the imagery is really cool to like take in, even if you don't know what or who these people are and what how significant they are. I'll try to point out what they are when we get into the breakdown. I know who some of the statues are when we get into it, but not all of them. So yeah. So the so but I think it's just it's impressive to see something done very with so much care and detail, even if you don't know the
Yeah.
specifics. And the point of the shot is to show like grandeur, and that was the point of the shot.
Yeah.
That was the point of the shot in the Fellowship of the Rings as well, when they were going down the river and those two statues were there. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean the effects and the scenery continue to be stellar.
yeah, definitely. Any other thoughts before we
No,
start breaking it down?
spoil it.
Okay. Okay. All right. So if you're enjoying the conversation, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel. It helps us grow. All right. So spoilers ahead. So do have screenshots from this episode. I guess I can jump ahead to the. I think this is. Yeah, this is. It did. There wasn't a cold open. I think it started with the
Yeah.
the title sequence. So I can jump into the. So we actually get to where we start. We start off in the Southlands with the character created for this show. What's his name?
Arondir.
Arondir. So Southlands, and we actually figure out what the Southlands actually are in this episode as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I guess you sort of knew what the Southlands were seen if you know a bunch of Tolkien. But like so yeah, he's caught by orcs here, and he's coming to, and he is put to work digging trenches with his, and he finds out that his compatriots here from the watchtower are also caught. So this is what is his name here? His name is Médhor, and his watch commander is also captured as well. Ravion. So that's where he is. And then we see Galadriel and what is his name? There's so, like you said, there's so many.
Hal-
Halbrand.
Halbrand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Galadriel and Halbrand are on this ship. And then we meet the captain in a little bit, Elendil, who is a Numorian. Uh, um, so Elendil is important because he's Isildur's father, but he also helped defeat Sauron in that last battle that you see at the beginning of the Fellowship of the Rings, that Galadriel is narrating in the prologue. I was so let's see. We see him here, so he's going to factor in He's going to be important all the way to the end of this show, basically, because he doesn't die until that battle. And I'm not sure if they're going to do it. So, a couple things that I learned this week is that the way that Peter Jackson portrayed that battle is not exactly the way that it went down in the books. And I'm not sure if they're going to go a different way. So, Isildur does cut off the ring off of his hand, but he cuts off the ring after Elendil and the king, king of the elves, which is Gil-galad, takes
Gil-galad,
Gil.
not Gil-galad.
No, Gil. Sorry, saying Gil-galad. Not Gil. Now I'm saying it wrong. So after they actually take Sauron down, so Sauron kills both of them, but he's like on the floor, and then he kills he cuts off the ring. But the way that Peter Jackson depicts it is that he kills his father, and Sauron is about to win, and then he cuts it off. So I wonder if they're gonna, since he's more of a character here, if they're going to have him actually, be more heroic in that battle when they do it. And probably it's probably going to be the season finale, series finale rather, fight.
I'll be curious because I think you're right. I mean, definitely in the episode they give Elendil quite a bit of character focus, and he is important, right? Because he goes on to be the first king of men in Middle Earth, essentially. Right. So, and he is essentially the first kind of line, as you would say, for Aragorn that is from Middle Earth and not from Numenor, because he is part of the Numenorians that do in fact go to Middle Earth, yes, to kind of have this, go into the fight against Sauron, and they create these two kingdoms. Gondor is one of them.
Gondor, and the other one is, I think, Arondir.
Arnor.
Yeah, so you have the map here. I'm not sure how well people can see these. There
you go. If you zoom in, you can. Yeah.
Arendor is the kingdom that Elendil. Making sure I get again. Lots. Not Elendil. Elendil will be the High King over, but Gondor is the one that Isildur is going to be the king of. Isildur and his brother are going to be the kings of that one. The shared kings.
Elendil I think does both, and then eventually Isildur takes Gondor. I think his brother takes I think it's called Anor. Anor essentially doesn't exist anymore. We see it in the Fellowship. So Weathertop, where Frodo gets stabbed by the Wraith, that's essentially the remains of Anor.
Right. So, yeah.
Which I think is cool. They do these little...
Yeah. So, yeah, he's important. And he will be important. I don't know. So, like, if they want the end of this show to be the battle, then we're going to see the building of those two cities. We're going to see something happen to Numenor that I'm not going to spoil right now, as well, and a lot of other things.
I might end up spoiling it just by comparison later. But,
yeah. So I mean, but it's nice to see Numenor, just like it was nice to see Khazad-dûm. Because in the Third Age, things happen.
They be gone.
Yeah.
I think
things happen.
I'm curious, like you said, because we know we're gonna get 5 seasons of the show. I think like we keep going back and forth. We talked about this last week as well. Like, where will they end it? And one thing is where they'll end the season, and then another is like where they'll end the show. I mean, if they really want to tie it up in a neat bow, they will end the show like, at the battle.
Yeah, the prologue. Where the prologue it would. Yeah. That makes sense. But what they're going to have to do is like jump like hundreds of years, so Isildur in Elendil are both Numenoreans from Numenor. So they are long lived. So you can jump hundreds of years or 20 years or so, and they still look the same because they're long lived. They have very long lives. So we'll see how they do that. The Harfoots, though, would be dead. So I don't know how they're gonna continue that line, or how they're gonna continue that storyline. Maybe by that time they will have wrapped up who the stranger is, and I mean we'll get to that later on, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we get lots of beautiful shots at trying to kind of recreate the awe that you got when you saw those two. But I mean, you had awe when you saw those two statues in Fellowship in the Rings, but everything is in ruins, right? Like all these kingdoms are not at their heights. So I think these are old kings, old Tars, which I guess is like a play on Tsar, but also, yeah. So it basically looks like Atlantis, and again without telling what's going to happen in Numenor, what happened to Atlantis is a kind of a guess about what's going to happen to Numenor. So I think this is Arendil. This is Arendil, which is no. I think this is Arendil, Eros's father, because next to Arendil is a bird, which would have been Eros's and Elrond's mother. Remember, she turned into a bird. If you zoom in, you can see it. There's a bird next to it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, I think this is his father. Elrond's and Elros's father. So Elros being the founder or the first king of Numenor. Again, to be helpful here, or try to be helpful here, here's a family tree here. So Elros.
Oh, I love that. It's color coded and everything.
Yeah, so
I love it.
so Elros is a descendant of Aragorn. Elrond, you can see how he's related to Galadriel. He married Galadriel's daughter, Celebrimbor, who and they had Aragorn, who marries Aragorn as well. So you can see their father Arendil and their mother Elwing. And Arendil is the guy I think he's in the stars basically. That if you remember from the Lord of the Rings, Galadriel gives Frodo the light of Arendil, and he uses that I think in the Return of the King when he's in the cave with the spider to light
again Sheila.
Yeah. So again, this is the significance of these things are more interesting or cooler when you know a lot more. But you kind of have to have maps, which is what I was just showing you, and family trees, and also know some of the family lineage for any of this to be cool. Otherwise, it's just like taking in sights without being uninitiated. But yeah, this is it's impressive.
It is, and I think you're right about the statue, even if you don't know, because I definitely didn't realize that's who the statue was.
Yeah,
of.
But it's a very cool statue, though. It's a very very impressive. Yeah.
Exactly, and it evokes a similar. They're obviously going for evoking a similar emotion when you first see those two statues in Fellowship, right? And it's, for us it was interesting because in the Fellowship, they're pointing away. Both those statues are kind of out, and this statue
it's more welcoming. It's much more welcoming. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah,
and I think the opening sequence for Numenor, like you said as well, Tolkien wrote it, as an Atlantis,
right.
Kind of a super advanced island, kind of in the middle of the ocean, have much more, or seem much more kind of I'm gonna say technology, but much more kind of advanced than their kind of, brethren human race in other parts of the world. So I think
Yeah.
he wrote it with that in mind for sure. And you can see the comparison on screen.
Yeah, and this is and actually this is actually, while this is impressive, this is close to not the fall of Numenor, but it's close to its decline, because the people here are supposed to be like 7 feet tall, which they are not. And I'm not sure if that was a decision for the show, but I also think that they're trying to show that they're in decline, because their ancestors were very tall, but as we find out later on, they are not in the same place as they were before. Like it was founded by Aros, whose brother is an elf, and he was half elf as well. Um, but they turned away from the elves. They turned away from the Valar, which are basically the gods of this realm. I mean, there's a god, there's a godhead above all of them. But the Valar are basically the gods of this of Middle Earth. Um, so
I am curious of the one thing of like the I hope that they go into it a little bit more in maybe in a future episode, and it doesn't have to spend a lot of time because they didn't talk a lot about why they've turned away the elves in this episode. And I'm just curious why, because I mean definitely if you go by the books, or if you go by the I think it's an Unfinished Tales, where it's actually kind of the king of Numenor wants to kind of showcase his power, and then he captures Sauron, brings him over, and actually like chains him, and so Sauron is in Numenor, and then Sauron kind of poisons his mind.
so that happens later on. Actually, that happens later on with our Farazan. So Farazan is actually in the show, and we see him as the Chancellor, but that happens later on when he takes the power away from the Crane Legion, who we're about to meet. So that's going to happen. I think they're definitely going to show that.
But isn't that when kind of once that happens and Sauron's captured and they kind of poison his mind? I thought that's when they kind of turned.
No.
I'm just wondering
It's been happening for generations. I think they just slowly have become more and more arrogant. Because they are, as humans go, they are the top humans. They like I said, they were like 7 feet tall. They were seafaring. They have this city that's basically Atlantis, and all the other humans were brought low, and also are being like watched. Like they basically have the police on them all the time because they sided with Morgoth. So you can also sort of, from the conversation that they have here, get a sense of why they broke off as well, because Galadriel comes into their house and says, "You have this island because of the elves."
Mm-hmm.
So like, it was given that, which is not true, really. It was given to them by the Valar.
By the Valar.
And it was given to them by the Valar because Tar, what is her name here? The Miriel says it was given to them because of the blood that they shed, right? So
Yeah.
I feel
They stood in the war against Morgoth, so
exactly. So
that was Valar's gift to them.
I feel like it's partly the snooty attitude of the elves that in the holier than thou, or the greater than thou attitude of the elves, which has contributed to them pulling apart. So like, even if you live hundreds of years, which the Numenorians do, someone who lives like thousands of years and are never going to die still sort of looks down on you, I guess, which you can get tired of. So I think that has to do with it. So there are two factions. There's the faithful who still believe in the Valar, and have kinship with and have kinship with the elves, and they're the kingsmen. So in this conversation, we have Tar Miriel, and her father is Tar Palantir. He's in a tower right now because he was one of the faithful, and the Kingsmen are sort of like in control right now, and you get a sense that she has taken over, and she's acting like she is one of the Kingsmen, but I think she is well from the unless they decide to change it, because there are actually two accounts apparently in Tolkien. Like there's one account where she was willfully with Pharazôn, and there's one account where he basically takes her as his wife by force. They're cousins, Pharazôn here, which who we'll see in a second.
How very Targaryen.
Yes. So this guy is Chancellor right now, and just like Chancellor Palpatine, you should watch him.
Yep.
You should watch him, because so yeah, so this exchange is interesting, but like she Galadriel has like no chill at all. Like she could, I mean, she has long life, but she's not like invincible, and she's around a bunch of people who do not like her. Yeah, Halbrand here sort of saves her and has a little bit more. He has more social graces.
I do like the back and forth between Muriel and Galadriel, because they both are such kind of headstrong, stubborn, kind of very sure of themselves, kind of women that are in command. So I do like the exchange between them, and I think it's interesting how Halbrand's kind of the middle ground, because he's not the character, at least for now, that you would expect to be able to like be the mediator between these two women. But I like how the scene played out between the three of them, and then yes, Pharazôn comes in at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess from this scene you get a sense that maybe he's just like charming and quick on his feet, and then later on you also find out that he has lineage that maybe has helped him, and maybe he's been in similar situations, similar diplomatic situations in the past. So yeah. Pharazôn actually. Pharazôn is just Pharazôn right now, but later on he'll be Pharazôn. Ars are the rulers that are Kingsmen take the R, put R in front of their name. The rulers that are faithful put Tar in front of their name, which is, like I said, close to Czar. So yeah, this he also just seems like sort of like Aladdin here. He's stealing from this guy. Yeah. He's stealing from this guy, and then later on he's stealing as well. There's all kinds of so there's all kinds of speculation on the internet about who this guy is, like in the lore, because it seems like it's another character that they created for the show, but there's some people who think that this is Sauron. There are some people who think that this is, since he's from the Southlands, and remember there were 9 rings that were given to kings, and we find out that he's a king, that this is one of the 9 kings, and specifically the witch witch king. So there's speculation that he, and it's funny the way that the way that they write him here. They try to actually draw some parallels between him and Aragorn, because he seems very reluctant to be king, similar to Aragorn, because of what his people did. So it's just gonna be, if he ends up being the Witch King, it's gonna be sad, because like Aragorn, it seems like he wants to do the right thing, but he's gonna be corrupted by a ring that he thought was a gift, and it's not gonna be his fault. It's gonna, because Sauron tricked them into thinking that the rings are gonna make their kingdom strong or whatever, and yeah.
I think it's interesting because I've also seen some speculation of who Halbrand actually is because yes, he was created specifically for the show. I mean, and I get that they're going for the Aragon vibes later when they were talking about his lineage, but I feel like the jury is still out, right? I mean, yes, they're going for the Aragon vibes, but like Aragon would not have left those people drowned on the boat, you know?
This
Like
is true.
he would
This is true.
he would
No,
not
no, no. Yeah,
he
yeah,
would not be
yes.
he would not be stealing, especially not like the welder's badge or whatever. So
Yeah.
I think he's like kind of this mix of
He's
good
he's
and
he's a
bad.
he's
It's
a,
a
he's
lot
a
of
lesser
fun.
he's a lesser Aragorn. So maybe Aragorn, maybe Aragorn, when even with the ring, one of the rings, the 9 rings on his finger, wouldn't have been corrupted.
Yeah,
Like he
maybe.
was. Um,
But I also wasn't sure, and I know we're skipping ahead, but like I feel like he even when she first sees that sigil around his neck, you know, he kind of was like, I took it from a dead man, and even later he's like, I'm not the hero you think I am, you know. So I'm still not completely sure
yeah,
that he is that person.
he could be saying the truth, and she just wants to believe what she wants to
Yeah,
believe,
she just
because
wants to believe
because
exactly.
she has. I was actually thinking about this earlier, um, and also like thinking about the preview for the next week. She's like, in the preview for the next week, she's like, "Oh, this guy, this is not some brawler in your dungeon. This is someone who's important." So she
Hmm.
I think what's also blinding her is that she feels like she has this aristocratic air about her, and she
Hmm.
thinks that important people should be treated in a completely different way. So maybe she just believes, or she wants him to be more important
Hmm.
than he is. Um, uh, yeah, which could get her in trouble. Uh,
It could be. And the reason why people are also saying the whole Sauron thing is because, I mean, we don't know where Sauron is right now, right? And he is a shapeshifter.
we
He's supposed to like corrupt people. And this guy is like, obviously he's gaining trust. We saw it in that scene that we just unpacked. You know, he's gaining trust, but he's also influencing. Now he's influenced Galadriel to think he is,
yeah.
you know, this kind of you know, king that's going to unite the Southlands. It could be, but I think it's also interesting that the show makes you be like, is he good or is he bad?
Well,
You know, is he Aragorn or is he Sauron? I mean, that's a that's a huge
that
spectrum.
is huge spectrum. The other thing is that Sauron is quite a bit of a smith. That's why he was able to forge the rings,
Yeah.
and also
Yeah.
influence Celebrimbor. So
Mhm.
him saying that, oh, I'm better, I'm a better swift than anyone on this island, which is a bold claim to make, given that you come
Yeah.
from a part of the world that has no kingdom, like he said. It is coming to basically
Yeah.
the most advanced civilization that he's ever seen. They probably have like many different skills and ways of foraging that that they've developed, that's far above, or far ahead of anything that he's seen on the thing. But to say that he can forge better than anyone, so that was a little suspicious. It
Yeah.
could be that he's just boasting, and he can't really back it up, because
Ex-
it makes no logical sense given where he's coming from and where he is. But it also could be true, because I don't know, he's Sauron,
Yeah.
because Sauron
Yeah.
that's yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like Sauron wants, like, because you can see Halbrand wants to stay in Numenor, right?
Right.
Like he doesn't want to leave to go back to Middle Earth, and Sauron knows that like Numenor is going to be a big part of this plan that he has, right? Of kind of taking this Morgoth's vision forward.
Right.
So we'll see. I think it's interesting how they've kind of positioned Halbrand. I'm curious how far they're gonna go in which
I
direction.
will say that he's not going to stay here. After that is Sauron, because he has to go and influence Celebrimbor, and also
Yeah.
and actually make the rings. So if
Mhm.
this is him, he'll be back later on as a captive when Pharazôn takes him.
Yeah.
But he's not going to as much as he wants to stay around on this island, he's not going to be there, because he has to be somewhere else in history later on. Um, and this is we get the introduction to Isildur here, and we kind of know where his story is going as well, from the movies, and also if you read the books. I mean, it's not necessarily a spoiler to say that he's good. He's going to be he's very important, but he also is going to be very disappointing um, to Aragorn. Um, Another family tree here. No, that's a map. Family tree here of Aragorn. Let me see if we can find here. So yeah, here's Isildur is here next to his brother, and like I said, Aragorn is down there. Um, and there's a lot of there's like kings of Gondor, kings of Arnor, who he's gonna be he's a direct descendant of both lines here. So yeah, he's important, but he also didn't get rid of the ring. So he's the reason that there's a bunch of issues in the Third Age. So.
Oh my god. And it's funny because every time his name gets mentioned, I always think because, oh my gosh, the guy who plays Elrond in Lord of the Rings. Why am I just blanking on his name? Agent Smith.
I can't remember his name either off the top of my head.
Completely blank on his name. But when in the original trilogy, when he's with Isildur in Mount Doom, and like Isildur's there, like about to drop it, and he doesn't. You know, he's like,
yes,
he says it with so much emotion that
and he, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? So I feel like
that's
and also
constantly
in my mind.
He says it with such conviction, and then when they flash back to the present day and the Fellowship of the Rings, he's so bitter. He's like, men are weak. Men are weak.
He's so bitter.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, it's poor Isildur in Rings of Power. We already know his fate. But it's cool to kind of see a younger version of him, I guess. And kind of his lineage with his dad, right, and his sister and his brother, because that's
the sister.
New for us.
Sister is a character created for the show. It's not. It's possible. There, I mean, all this is made up, but I mean, all this is made up. So you know, anything is possible. But I think the way that they wrote was it Silmarillion was written. It wasn't written with like blow by blow account of everyone's lineage. It was just like the important people. So maybe it's possible that a lot of people would have had people who are in their family that aren't important to the story, but it would have been important to those people at that time, but not important to history. So even though this is probably annoying a lot of people, it's fine. It'll probably help with the character development of the people that they actually care about, with like Elendil and Isildur.
And they show like there's obviously a relationship they're trying to show there.
Yeah, who seems to be like an architect of some sort, because she's going to get into school later on. They also have here him like daydreaming or something like that, and I feel like this is also sort of meant to kind of explain him later on and explain his failings later on, and his weakness later on. So it was not really clear, but it seems like something is calling to him, just like the ring is going to call to him later on. So yeah,
Illusions of Grandeur.
These ships are very impressive. Like everything in Numenor.
Yeah.
So yeah, they go do landfall. So they're all cadets, I guess at this point. It's interesting. They have a very like they have a very regimented society. There's guilds. There's actually like an academy for being a seafarer. Yeah.
And for being smiths, right?
Yeah.
You need that qualification.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely a very kind of like structured society where everyone has a role and you have to like give 100% for the advancement of the society, kind of thing. That's the impression that you get.
This is her sister, who is Erin. I think is her name. Sorry.
I'm gonna
No, no,
go
no.
with that
I
because I
have it
cannot remember.
here in my notes. And actually, if I go back to when she shows up, I think he calls her name. If I
Okay.
go, where is it? No, I think that's him dressing him down for like the guy who almost flew into the ocean. Uh,
Oh yeah.
so he sees his sister. I don't think he. I yeah, and he says your sister is here. I don't know if her name comes up, but I think in the like I said, I have her. I'm probably pronouncing her name wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's uh Erin sorry, Eari
Oh yes.
En.
It's the E.
But there's like a umlaut above her the two A's.
Okay.
Or sorry, umlaut above the
Wow.
A. So this tree is important. We'll probably see it again, so I won't get too much into it. There's also a similar tree in Gundor, where a fruit Isildur is going to steal some fruit from this at some point over the next 5 seasons, and he's going to take that and plant a tree in Gundor. That's going to be the from this tree. Um,
White.
so yeah, this is very impressive palace. So yeah, it feels like this whole scene she's trying to feel him out to see if he's faithful, if
Mm-hmm.
he's a kingsman or if he's or a faithful, and she doesn't want to tip her hand about whether or not she's a kingsman or she's a. I mean, like publicly she's a kingsman, right? She took over from her father and put him in a tower.
Yep.
But I feel like she's more aligned with her father than not. Um, but like I said, go
Yeah.
ahead.
I mean the that the I think it's like is it the her last scene
Right.
anyways, obviously she goes to see her father, right? And it gives the impression there's some sort of prophecy or something in place where she's like the elf has arrived, right? So I agree with you. I think she definitely comes off as being
Mm-hmm.
very Kingsman, but TBD. Again, I
Yeah.
think we'll kind of see where she goes. And it might be that she
Right.
wants Elendil, right, to kind of be on her side in a way, which is, and she is also feeling him out for
Yeah.
that point of
So,
view, like he seems like a man of honor that's
right.
not gonna cross
So
the line
so
one way or
this
the
is
other.
her family tree. Or yeah, this is her family tree because it also is sort of related to Isildur's and Elendil's family tree because like she says in this conversation, they he comes from noble blood. So Tar Palantir is her father, and as I mentioned, the faithful take Tar for their names. The Kingsmen take R. So he actually, her father um, is faithful, even though his father was not. So you see, his father has R. Gimazil. So there were several generations of kings who were unfaithful and who were the kingsmen and who kind of broke away from the Valar and the elves, and her father specifically broke with that tradition and became faithful. This is why he's in a tower right
Mhm.
now. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yep.
Um,
And I think they say that. Actually, yeah, when
yeah.
they're I think when Elendil's with Galadriel in the
Yeah.
library,
Yeah.
he says that. Yeah.
So if you look further, if you look really far back in I think see if I can find another family tree here of Elros. Nah, I'll find. I had another one of like some of the early kings that came after Elros. Pretty much every single one of those
Right.
kings just like tar this or tar that or tar. So closer to Elros, they were actually being like I said reverent to the Valar and also and friendly with the elves. And then at some point, several hundred years from where they are right now, the king started to break away. Um, so
Mm.
yeah, the conversation here, like I said, I think that I mean she's trying to see, she's asking about his name, which means like she said, like he says rather, it means two different things. It means um what did he say? something
One who
about
loves the stars.
yeah, one who
Something about
loves
the
one who
stars,
loves
which
the
also
stars.
is
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the
But it also
yeah.
means elfren in the ancient tongue, which is the of the Eldar, which is Elvish basically. Um, so yeah, she's trying to feel him out. And he's not going to tip his hand because he's trying to keep his position here because he knows that the faithful are
Mm.
kind of pariahs in the capital city um, of Numenor. Uh, One of the other things that I forgot to like mention here. So I actually have a map of Numenor. So they are in um, Matalar, which is the I think that's where they are. Yeah, that's what they're in the city here. He has a conversation with Isildur later on about the west over here, which is Undastar,
Mhm.
which I think there's a bunch of faithful on that side of the island, um, and that's where his son is as well. They mentioned that that's where the son is as well, and also that's where they go later on when they go to Elros's library. That's where
Mhm.
that's where Elendil and Galadriel go later on.
And notice it's in the shape of a star. That's why all the cities are end in star, and that's why it's called the Star
Yeah, yeah,
Island because of the
yeah,
shape.
yes,
5 point.
yeah. Um, so this is also I forget. Do you remember the name of the the sword that Elendil that breaks?
Yeah,
Looks like this might be the sword that's going to break it. It's not that it doesn't look exactly like it does in Peter Jackson's movie, but they can't use all the things from Peter Jackson's
yeah.
movie. So
It's I don't know. So the blade was
Narsil,
called
Narsil.
Narsil. That was
Okay,
the original blade. But I thought that too. But I was like, can a sword last that long? They'll have to keep it in like they'll have to be keeping it in really good shape.
I
You
think
know?
this is kind of what I was talking about earlier about about the about Halbrand talking about he could forge anything better. Like I think the point of Numenor is that they forge weapons in a way that's similar to if you watch Game of Thrones, you know how they had specific weapons from old Valeria
Mm.
that were like super weapons and they lost the knowledge of how to make those weapons. So every single one of those blades, I think that's sort of the case with anything that's made here.
Mm.
So the fact that it was broken when he was fighting Sauron, when he was fighting Sauron, I think either it was broken when he was fighting Sauron, and then Isildur took up the shards and broke and cut off
Yeah.
the
And
ring.
cut off.
So yeah, I think that the
I feel like I feel like it is just because like obviously we got this shot and we got the attention to the sword and like why else present them
right,
with
and,
this
and like I said,
sword,
I don't think
right?
they can make the sword look exactly like they did in Peter Jackson's movie because they don't have the rights to that. But
Yeah.
like, it also looks very similar. It's like that sword was like silver.
The helm.
This one is gold, but it also has a hole in the hilt here, which is very
Yeah. Yeah. The helm
very
definitely looks
similar.
very
Yeah.
similar.
Um, and like you said, they made a big point of like putting the camera on it. So I feel like
Yeah.
that was for a reason. Lost my place here. Um, I'm sorry.
But see, I mean, so as you go back into place, like we were saying earlier, such a big chunk of, I mean, yes, we start with Arondir, and yes, we start with the name Adar, which is what the episode is called Adar, but literally, probably like 80% of the episode is in fact
Right,
in
right.
Numenor, and it's very much centered around what's happening there, even though the episode is
Yeah,
called
yeah,
Adar.
exactly. So this is
Um,
this is where we actually going to cut, and we're going to go back to Aaron, where we started. But like you said, this is a good portion of the episode that we've been in so far, and we haven't because Numenor is a big deal. I guess that's why they wanted to kind of
Yeah.
give it some love, and also it looks like they spent a lot of money, not just with the special effects, but I think they built a lot of that. And I was I was watching
Yeah.
a their Comic Con panel. They built a lot of that city. They like it in New Zealand. They built a lot of that city. So yeah, this is the map that's actually in the show. It doesn't have as much detail as the one that I showed, but you can see some of the same cities if I zoom in here. Not all of them. So yeah, this is the transition from here back to the Southlands. Across, there's a giant gap here, so that the island is way out in the ocean, away from Middle Earth. It's very close to um, Valinor. Yeah, it's very close to
Yeah.
Valinor in the Sundering Sea. Um, so we're in the Southlands, and later, like I said, we learn where we actually are later on in this episode. Um, yeah, with Arondir, and yeah, they try to. No, I think the escape happens over the attempt to escape actually happens later on. This is when
A bit later.
his
Yeah.
comrade is about to get killed. So and they and her his
Water thing.
their watch captain talk about, if one of us can get away, then we can come back with force and take them out. This is Revion. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, they. The other thing is that I don't think we mentioned last week is that there are all these caste. There's basically a caste system within the elves, and there are the people who went to Valinor, who were taken to Valinor from Middle Earth, because all of them started in Middle Earth, and there's some of the elves that never went to Valinor, and um,
Yep.
Arandir is was one of those elves that never went to Valinor. He's called he's a Sylvan elf. And I think all of these guys are actually Sylvan elves. Um,
Yep.
so
Yeah, I talked about this last week where it was like, you had the elves that came from Valinor specifically for that, the war of power against Morgoth, and then you kind of had elves that were
well,
kind of from Middle Earth,
all of
essentially. So
them
it is
from
it,
my research, all of them were from Middle Earth. Like they all were put all of them were put on Middle Earth.
on Middle Earth, but then the Valars kind of
Right,
created
right. So some
Valinor
and then some of
for
them
the
came
elves.
from Middle Earth to Valinor, and then they were there for several generations. So there's the first age, and there was the age before that called the Year of the Tree, the Year of the Trees. So they were in there that they were there for several generations. So I guess the elves who weren't in Valinor just existed on Middle Earth with no with only
On Middle
starlight, basically, because the moon didn't exist now then either. Um,
Yeah, because Elrond is one of those elves, like he's a Middle Earth
sure.
elf,
So
not
yeah,
Val.
Elrond is a Middle Earth elf. So is Legolas. Although Elrond's
Like,
parentage is very again, to show the thing that I think he has some parentage that is from the from Valinor as well. Like some of these elves are from
yep.
Valinor. Some of these elves are Sylvan elves. There's a bunch. He's basically a elvish mutt, I guess. He comes from a lot of different tribes. He comes from a lot of different tribes. Plus humans.
Yeah.
So yeah, Elrond is there's a lot mixed up in there, um, with Elrond. Um, so yeah, this yeah, yeah, this is all this is they're not CGI. They're going back with practical effects here.
Yeah. And I kind of like the the way that they've done the
Hmm.
orcs in this in the show much more, in the sense like they've made them look more elf-like, right? And less kind of like less
Right.
beastly, which
Yeah.
is
The
what
other.
Peter Jackson did.
So like
And so
that's a good point. So I actually, and also showing that their skin is more like white. So like you can see the burns. So like here on this
yeah.
orc's face, you can see the burns from the sun and why they're trying to keep out of the
Hmm.
sun. So I will say that I just now watched Fellowship of the Rings earlier this week again, and when editing our talk from earlier from last week after watching it, you mentioned that the in the Mines of Moria, those weren't orcs, those were goblins, but they
Goblins.
looked the same to me, right? So I didn't know the difference because in those in the Lord of the Rings movies, he doesn't make much of a distinction. It doesn't. They look very very
No.
similar. So I appreciate them looking a little bit different here. And then maybe when goblins
Yeah.
show up,
Yeah.
they will come. They will have a completely different look for the goblins because they definitely look. They're
Yeah.
white skinned here, and also like I said, this is very practical effects. Whereas a lot of the orcs in the Fellowship were like CGI characters.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I like that too. I like the kind of use of like the physicality of it. It's just, and then they're all like wrapped up, and because they can't expose the sun, which is a huge part of the story, because
Right.
that's how they've been kind of hiding, right? They've been hiding
It's
underground, and that's how none of these elves saw them, even though like they've been watching over these
right,
lands
and
for thousands of years.
it's also a huge part of the story about what they're making these humans and these elves do. What specifically they're trying to make them do.
Yeah.
There's a method to their madness, which we find out later on what the point of all this digging is, you know. So yeah, this is where his comrade, because they think they're trying to poison him, but no, they were just trying to get them to expose their neck. That
Yeah.
giving new meaning to protect your
Brutal.
neck. So Matt,
It was brutal. I definitely was like,
yeah,
somebody's head's gonna roll. I don't know whose it is. I thought it was gonna be the captain, to be
yeah, his
honest,
time
but
comes
I
later
guess
on.
the
So this is
friends.
Médhor. This is
Yeah.
Médhor. He dies, and then later on, well, actually, a bunch of elves die, and because they
Yeah.
release a warg later on. Um, so the reason I mentioned that he's a Sylvan elf, a lot of the most of the elves have a great reverence for Mother Nature and like trees and stuff like that, but the Sylvan elves in particular do. So he actually apologizes to this tree in Elvish before before he cuts it down. Um, which is why they didn't want to. This was why they didn't want to cut it down in the first place before he was forced to. Um,
And we also had those trees, if you recall, the trees of light
yeah,
from Valinor. So I think there's a lot of
right,
affinity
right,
with nature and
and also the
trees
tree that
themselves.
we saw at the beginning in front of the palace, like which is a descendant of those trees from Valinor.
Oh, sorry, not Gondor, the
Yeah,
white tree. Sorry, I keep calling it the Gondor tree, but
yes,
that
yes,
doesn't exist
yes.
yet.
But the tree here
Like,
on in Numenor, it is a descendant of one of
yeah.
the trees from Valinor. It just doesn't light up. But it is a descendant of one of those trees.
Mm.
Um, what did this guy say? You will inform for that she
No,
escaped.
that you
That she
have to
escaped.
inform her that
Oh yeah, I didn't even
she
see that she
escaped.
jumped out of her
Yeah.
thing. You can see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the cross.
Um, yeah, and this is where she meets up with Elendil, who's just like, yeah, that's probably not going to get you. They are very far away from Middle Earth. That's probably not the best ship for her. She's going to end up in the water again. So that
Definitely.
yeah,
Especially
sorry.
boat. I
Yeah,
said
it's
especially on that
it's
boat. I
basically a
mean,
dinghy. It's
that's
boat. This is likely a boat that was created for sailing around the island, but not for like middle
yeah,
getting from where they are to Middle Earth. Uh, yeah, yeah,
thundering seas.
um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I like this exchange between them as well because it's
yeah,
like they're measuring each other up, but in a very kind of like playful, but like kind of
yeah.
threatening way,
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah. And I also like how he sort of tips his hand to where his allegiances are as well by showing her, so there. I mean, the city, of course, would have shrines all over the place to elves and also the Valinor, but they're in disrepair. So, like, he points to this one that's like grown over because there have been several generations of kings who have stopped worshiping the Valinor, the Valar, and also the elves. So there's a lot of things there's a lot of things like this that are like that are not kept up as much. But he points out that they're all over the place. Um,
And he doesn't question how she
no, no,
does
no, no.
it either.
I think as slick as Halbrand thinks he is, I think he let him pull it. He let him
He
take
let
it.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That or he just thinks that she took it, but I think he let him take it. Um, so this is the first time in the entire show that I've seen her smile. Was she
Yes, I think that's why we got the
yeah.
slow mo shots is just to see her
Uh,
smile.
yeah. So yeah, and it's a beautiful shot. They're riding on the
It's so
um
yeah.
on the beach here across the plains. I mean, this is a very large island. This island actually has a mountain in the middle of it. So yeah,
Yeah. No, it's very cool. And again, it's like the very kind of what you expect
yeah,
from Lord of the Rings, right? These like sweeping vistas and these amazing
right,
nature shots. But I think we got the slow-mo just to see Galadriel being happy because she's just been so just sulky the last three
yeah.
episodes.
So just going for it, we actually this a lot actually does happen in this episode. We haven't gone to the Harfoots yet, and eventually we're going to get to the Harfoots. But I'm going to speed ahead here. So like he tries to get the guild thing. He speaks to this guy who keeps calling him low. What is it low man? Yeah, low man.
Low man.
Which gets him in trouble. I mean, he handles himself like he tries to buy everyone drinks. I'm not sure where he gets money from, but I don't know. Maybe they gave him.
I asked that too.
I
I'm
don't know.
like, where do
Maybe
you get
maybe
that money
maybe
from?
maybe that the Numenorians are so wealthy that they give visitors like a stipend. You can't walk around the city without a little bit of money. You're our guests. Here's a little here's a per
Your
diem.
damn.
I don't know. Um, so I don't know, but yeah, he does warn them. He says he doesn't want any trouble. They think they think this fight is going to
Hmm.
go completely different than it actually is going to go, and I think they're kind of hinting here that he knows that he can take them. Um, these
Yeah.
aren't the
Yeah.
Numenorians that are directly descended from Elros. They're not 7 feet tall men. They're just regular looking dudes. So um,
Yeah. I think you're right that he
yeah,
knows that he can
and
take
he's
them.
and he's also
Um,
so
which
going
is
back to
why
your
he's
thought about like him not necessarily be more him being less Aragorn and more Sauron. He does some brutality in this fight that's kind of unnecessary to take them out. He breaks this guy's arm here.
that
He
arm.
breaks
I
this guy's
know.
arm here, and he hits this
Right there.
guy head against it's like it's a little bit unnecessary to take them out, which kind of tips you more towards Sauron than the Aragorn. So I don't
Yeah.
know. But also possibly also just the Witch King, right? Like someone who could be corrupted by Sauron. So
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
might under better circumstances um, be a good guy, but is easily corruptible. So yeah, this we get to Elros's Hall of Lore, assembled by Elros, and then we see a painting of him and his brother when they basically part, when Elros makes the decision to be human, and Elrond
Mm-hmm.
decides to go and be an elf. So yeah, she says that she's more fond of his brother. She knew him, but she's more fond of his
Yeah.
brother. Yeah. So that's cool. They should probably, I don't know, without like a bunch of exposition about how Elros, like how long ago this happened. Um, it's hard to like communicate to the audience unless you're gonna do like a deep dive, like like History Channel kind of thing about the lineage, like
Yeah.
how long ago Elros lived, and like yeah, and how many
Yeah.
generations, and
Exactly. And that's what I was saying. Like, I think it's great when you see the show, because I think if you love fantasy, then you are going to enjoy the show because it does fulfill a lot of like the fantasy elements. But I think, like you're saying, if you do the deep dives into like the family, and the lineage and the family tree, like you've been doing on the show, I mean, that just adds a
right,
whole
right,
other layer,
yeah. Uh,
I wonder if we'll see Elrond
no, no, no.
again.
Elros
Maybe,
is, I
probably
think,
not.
is long dead. Yeah, I mean, I think
Maybe, yeah, is he dead?
I think he lasted for several hundred years, but he's still human. So he died.
Yeah.
He died. He's
Yeah,
yeah,
he
he's
is
yeah.
half
Um,
human.
so no, I think he's like similar to Arwen, who gave up her immortality. Like he's human. Like he
Yeah.
decided to have immortal life. So he died.
Yeah.
So like even though he was half elf, he gave up his immortality. This is where we get the Harfoots.
Oh, the heart thing. It's funny. Like, I literally just before the scene transitioned, I turned to my husband and I was like, "I haven't seen the Harfoots all episode," and then boom, like right then we get the Harfoots, and I was like, "All right, I guess we have to have every storyline
Yeah. Oh, I mean,
covered in
we
the
don't see
episode."
Elrond in this episode, and we don't see the
True, we don't
dwarves,
see the
and
dwarves and
I
Elrond.
was
True,
looking
true.
forward to seeing them. So yeah, I'm more interested in this storyline now than I was before, but it's still like my I'm least interested in it. I'm more interested in it because I want to know who the stranger is. I will
Yeah,
say that they
exactly.
did some more character development here with Poppy. So with Poppy and
Yes,
also with the Brandyfeet or the
Nori.
Brandyfoots. Right? The Brandyfoots is what they would be plural, not feet.
Right.
They would be the
Yeah.
Brandyfoots plural. So we find out here that Darla is not Eleanor's mother. Eleanor's mother died, and so this is his second. This is Beau's second wife. We find out that here. Um, uh, Sarah, we don't really hear much of from Sarah. Sarah's the her little sister here, and they're very
Marigold.
and
Marigold. Yep.
they're sorry, Marigold. Sorry, the actors, and actually I'm looking at the wrong side. Uh, Dilly is the name of the father, and or is it Largo? Largo is the name of the father. Dilly is the name of the wife. Marigold is the little sister. I was looking at the actor's name. Sorry. So we find out that this is his second wife, and she's concerned because like without his strength, they can't push their cart. So his plan here is that they're going to be at the front of the front of the caravan, which is screwed up later on. Unfortunately, with Nori's friend making. So
Yeah.
that's interesting, I guess. It
I
also
will.
go ahead.
I will say all the olives in his hair distracted me
Is it?
just a tad.
I think they're
I was like,
acorns. I think they're
olives
They're
or
acorns. Yeah.
acorns, but I was like, was like maybe the stylist could have toned it down just a little, but I think it's a cute kind of heartwarming scene. I mean, it's trying to add stake,
Yeah, and
right,
it's and
to
it also
this
like this
story.
scene and also the speech about how like not necessarily cutthroat they are, but they're just pragmatic because they're very small people. They can't be heroic about like going
Yeah,
back for people who were left on the trail. They have to move ahead, right? When things happen. They had yeah.
there, there there's no such motto
Yeah,
as
exactly.
leave no hard
There's
footprints
nothing like
behind.
that. Yeah, you definitely get left. You definitely yeah. They'll keep you in their thoughts. Like there's, but that's about
Yeah,
it. You get yeah.
that's about it.
So that there's that. So yeah, she tries to still hit the star chart here from what's his name Sardak Sardak
Adar.
Barrows. We also hear a little bit about him, and or maybe it's Poppy that had the acorn. Yeah, Poppy has acorns. Maybe it was olives. They have a lot of stuff in their hair. They don't- instead of like precious
They have a
milk,
lot of stuff in there.
instead of like precious stones and stuff like that, they adorn themselves with like stuff from nature. Which is another interesting
Yeah.
flourish there. To
That also might be just for them to hide, because in the first episode they were
yeah,
like hiding
true, and
and
they
trying to
do it
blend
later
into
on
the
when the
scenery.
stranger comes up as well. They all they hide very quickly. They
Oh
hide
yeah,
very quickly.
yes.
Yeah, this scene is funny. Yeah, with
I feel like I know we're supposed to be rooting for Nori, but I definitely find a lot more like I'm
yeah
really liking
the
Poppy.
whole
I
thing
just
that she
think
says
like
here about she's like hard sense and heart sense, and she's like and Bobby's like no, there's nonsense and there's common sense. I'm like yeah,
that
yes.
was amazing.
And yeah, and
That was
if you're
so
lacking in
good.
the latter, I
And
can
even
give you a
just
little bit of my common sense because I don't know what you're doing. Yeah, yeah,
it was funny. And then just this whole thing where she was like, do you have a lot left? Are you gonna be here
yeah,
right away?
yeah,
I mean, it was just so cute. It was cute. It was
yeah.
cheeky. It was like a cheeky exchange. So yeah, I think they did Poppy well in this episode, because also when was it
It's
right
right
before
after
this,
we
or
find
actually it
out
was
that her
after when
entire
they were
family, like I appreciated the Harfoot scenes just because Poppy's cool here, and also we find out that her entire family died in a slow an avalanche. It's like
got
a
left.
lot of
Yeah,
people in her family died. So she's the only surviving person in
yeah.
her family, and we also find out that Sardak's wife died as well when they're reading off the names here. Yeah.
Okay.
So I
I
think
think I
he's
realized
so
that.
you see. I think the point of it is actually the camera lingers on Poppy, when they're reading off
Mm-hmm.
all the
Mm-hmm.
people who
The
the
proud
proud
fellow. Yeah.
the what is her name, proud fellow, all the proud fellows
Proud.
that died. Um, and it also lingers on his face when he says his wife's name, which is something Burrows. We'll see it in a second. Um,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Um, 1 second. We'll see the names. Here it is. So
Yeah.
here it is.
Oh, right here.
So
Chance
Chance
Proudfellow.
Proudfellow, which I assume was her father, her mother Yarrow, Strap, Dewis, maybe her brothers, uh, another Linseed, maybe her sister. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then you can see her, and then they zoom in on her face. So yeah,
Yeah.
her entire family, um, and there it is, right here. Yeah,
Oh, there.
and they
Gotcha.
zoom in
Okay.
on
Oh, down
him
below.
and how he reacts. I think she was taken by a wolf.
Okay.
Wolves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Mm.
yeah. Uh, so like I said, when he sets this thing on fire and he loses control, he has like people think that he's going to be Sauron, but like
I think
I
he's
don't
gonna
think he's
be
going to be Gandalf
Gandalf.
either though. Like I think like last week when I did less when I had less research, I thought Gandalf maybe as well, and maybe Saruman or Sauron, because he killed the bugs. But I think he's going to be one of the blue wizards,
One of the blue wizards.
Which allows them a lot more latitude because Tolkien didn't write a lot about them.
Yeah.
They were just they were in the Southlands,
Yeah.
and they can make up all kinds of things about one of the blue wizards.
I think I definitely. I mean, I think we know it's going to be some sort of wizard. I think I was only thinking Gandalf because it's such a beloved character that
it also is going to be it's impossible for this character this actor it's so sure no it's being Gandalf would be cool, except for you're going to be immediately compared to Ian McKellen, which is a difficult. You don't want to be compared to Ian McKellen. You just want to be. You want to be.
Well, maybe therefore they're not making him speak yet because they're like, you'll never be able to command your.
So it's just easier for them and easier for him, this actor, if he's just another. If it's another wizard, like a wizard who. That no one that he doesn't have to be compared unfavorably to, so.
I mean, honestly, that would go for Saruman as well. No, you do not
exactly,
to
which is why I think. I mean, it's possible that it's Gandalf or Saruman, but I think it's easier for the writing staff and also the actor, and also possibly more interesting if they fill in some story about one of the blue wizards because we don't know anything about them. So
yeah, because I mean we got Radagast and the Hobbit,
which is the Hobbit. Do we get one of the blue wizards in the Hobbit?
We got Radagast. So there's two blue wizards. Then there's Radagast.
Well, we got Radagast is the brown wizard, right? Yeah.
The brown.
Yeah.
The one.
I think we get him in one of the other movies as well. We get him in one of the trilogy. I think we see him in the trilogy as well. So, no. Are you sure he doesn't show up in one of the Lord of the Rings movies? I feel like
I don't think he's in the Hobbits ones when like the necromancer they're just starting to kind of see the necromancer come up. I didn't one of the season. So I think he's only
I might be remembering incorrectly because I sort of remember him, but it's possible because I saw one of the Hobbit films and I didn't watch any of the other ones. Maybe that's why I think that he showed up in one of the Lord of the Rings movies, but I guess maybe he showed up in the first one because
I think he's in the first Hobbit. Possibly one of the Hobbits. I can't claim to remember the Hobbits.
Yeah, I gave up after the first one. They were over long for the story they were trying to tell. Because I wasn't much of a Lord of the Rings person before watching the movies in the early 2000s, but I saw the Hobbit cartoon, and that story is like maybe an hour or so, and yeah.
I mean, like max 2 movies, and even that's a stretch. I actually didn't mind the first one because I think he did quite a bit that was within the book. But the second and third just like completely went on a tangent.
Yeah.
Especially the third. By the time the third came, I was like, oh god.
So yeah.
I do like the cast.
Yeah.
The casting was good, but anyway, this is not a review for that. Let's get there.
So Sardak, this busybody woman who was very who wants her to be disembarked or what is the term that she used here?
Something like that.
I think decaravan.
Oh.
This is either Velma or Malva. It's
Malva.
He's bothered by these two women all the time. I think so. So yeah, he decides not to do that, but he decides that they're going to be in the back, which is not great because his ankle is broken, so and it's not going to be healed anytime soon. So yeah, it screws them over. And I don't know. So like, I also feel like they're also setting up Dilly as like almost like an evil stepmother to her, because I didn't know that she was her stepmother until this episode. But she tells her things like, like don't be the tall like grass because that gets cut down. You're not special.
You're not special.
But yeah, which from her perspective, she is causing a lot of problems for the family. Yeah, her actually being there, her the fact that she wasn't there and she was with the strangers, part of the reason, not exactly the reason, but part of the reason that her father got injured. So there's all kinds. I can understand from her perspective that this child is a little annoying. Although I guess maybe she's not a child; she's just like the eldest daughter. I don't know how old she's supposed to be here. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Here's where the tallest milkweed gets snipped. Anyway, then we're back on Numenor. Yes, this is the conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is the conversation with Isildur, Elendil, and the and his daughter, where we find out that that she got into school, and also that Isildur would like to defer being a cadet. We're not sure why that's the case. The brother also comes up in this conversation, and he's supposed to be forgotten. I'm not sure why he's supposed to be forgotten, but I think he's in another part of the island. So yeah. Yeah. So maybe he's less into like faking that he's not a faithful than the rest of the family. So maybe that's why he's over there. I don't know. I guess we'll find out later on. This is the conversation where we find out that he's possibly a king, but like I said, there's some question here about whether or not she is just projecting and she wants him to be of noble blood because she thinks that's what's the most important thing in the world. Which I have some quibbles with, especially given recent events about a certain monarch passing away, in people feeling like the aristocracy is a good idea. Anyway, let's see.
No, I mean it is, and I think like we were talking about earlier. I think we'll see what happens with Halbrand, whether that's actually his necklace,
or he sold it off to
digital
someone,
thing,
and he was telling the truth. Yeah.
or he took it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting if with the Night King.
Yeah.
Story.
This is. I thought this was the end of the episode. No, this is her going to see her father. So her father, I think, what they're alluding to here is that her father has, similar to if you're watching Game of Thrones, some of the Targaryens have the gift of sight, and I think her father also has the gift of sight, and he saw the fall of Numenor, and I think the beginning of the fall of Numenor was an elf visiting the island. So she's afraid that basically his prediction is going to come true. So yeah, this is when the stranger comes out and becomes the friend and helps them out. So again, I'm interested to see who this guy is going to be. I mean, the simplest solution is that it's Gandalf, but like I said, that sucks for this guy. Ian McCallum, yeah, big shoes to fill. I think Gandalf showed up in all 6 of those movies. So yeah, so yeah. So there's a lot of screen time to compare him to Ian McKellen, which is not great for him. So yeah, this is when they try to escape, and we get some really cool action scenes. And also when his commander basically dies.
Very, very overconfident elves who then just like die in an
Yeah,
instant with the
the
war.
war
You know?
shredded through them here. I mean, it was a good
Yeah.
plan, I guess. I mean,
Yes.
it wasn't completely. Well, they didn't know that they had a warg. So
I was gonna say
yeah,
they
yeah.
didn't know the
So
war.
cutting down the shade to try to give them some time to cut their bonds would have worked if they didn't have the warg, which, like I said,
Yeah. And, and if they knew that once they actually get out of the trench that there's
arrows.
people with
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they
arrows,
don't know the situation. Basically, it was doomed to fail. There was no way they were going to get out of this. This warg runs through them like they're pieces of paper, basically, like they're
yeah,
paper men.
yeah,
And the only reason that he actually is able to do anything is because he traps it for a little bit. Yeah. So this guy, he gets out, but like I said, he gets the Faramir, uh, he gets the Faramir treatment with
yeah.
the arrows to the chest. Um, so I guess to a certain extent, I guess it's Isildur's treatment as well, because he gets he's also killed by a bunch of arrows eventually. Spoilers if you haven't seen Lord of the Rings. um, so yeah, and I think this is not how it ends. It ends with Adar actually coming out. So who do you think Adar is? Do you think
I think
Adar is Saruman, or you think because it doesn't look like an orc? Um,
no, no, I do. I mean, so Adar is a new character that's created for the show.
but
So we know
sort of looks
that,
like an elf.
and
And there have been wicked
it
elves.
yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah, I want to say yes because that I mean they ended with
yeah,
this is kind
his
of the
blurred.
ending
Yeah,
shot and they did it purposely. They purposely did it blurred because I think they want you to kind of have that idea because even when you see it, it does look
yes,
like
definitely.
it's an
Yeah,
elf,
definitely.
you know? The cheekbones,
Yeah,
the ears, I mean, it doesn't look like an orc, but then you do see the hands,
which
which
looks
are
more
do
like
have like
Sauron or until I saw this show. So the gauntlet basically the gauntlets look like
yeah,
Sauron's look like Morag's gauntlets. So
yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. I guess
It's
he's
gonna be interesting.
if he's not Sauron, he's a lieutenant of some sort, or a general
Yeah,
of Sauron. What
yeah. He's definitely
which
supposed to be
at this
important.
point might make sense because at this point in history he doesn't have the Witch King, he doesn't have the Narskoll, so maybe he needs other
Yeah,
lieutenants, other generals at this point in history.
yeah, yeah,
So that would actually
yeah.
be a good addition for for the show to kind of fill in things, because I think there definitely are like Balrogs and dragons that Sauron has, but
Mm,
he doesn't have generals in this age.
mm.
So yeah, um,
No, so yeah, because Morgoth made all those
yeah,
things, but yeah,
and a
we're
few of
kind
them
of
survived to the second age, and also
yeah.
and even fewer of them into the third age. So yeah,
We see the one
yeah,
Balrog, obviously,
but another one is
anymore.
definitely going to show up in this season actually, because I remember
Yeah,
it from the trailers. So this guy, it's also interesting. This guy is tempting. What is this kid's name? Theo. Theo. He's like,
no, Theo.
it's like Morgoth. Yeah,
It's
Morgoth is
worse
coming
than that.
back, and I
Sorry.
don't know. I'm thinking like from their perspective, they've been under the thumbs of the elves for like 1,000 years. So maybe and maybe from their perspective, Morgoth is like a savior to them.
Mm,
Yeah. So maybe. So
maybe.
we'll see. So yeah, we've been.
Yeah, I mean, we're still gonna get a lot of like, men are weak,
Yeah.
men are untrustworthy. We're still gonna
Yeah.
get a lot of that storyline. So I'm sure
I
there's
would
more of
appreciate it
that
if they
coming,
do
and
more nuance than
we
that, though. I feel like they're doing a little bit more nuance
yes.
here, whereas like Tolkien-ish stuff is a little bit more black and white and more. I mean, it's not as black and white and childish as say, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is like almost a straight
Mm, yeah.
1-to-1 like Christianity, good and evil sort of thing. There's more
Yeah.
nuance here, but like there's less nuance than say Game of Thrones, and I feel like they're trying to add a little bit of nuance here, um, with why men might have been corrupted, like not just because they're weak, but because from their
Mm-hmm.
perspective, elves are a little arrogant, and annoying, and if you watch just the Fellowship, if you watch just the Fellowship of the Rings, sorry, if you just watch the Game of Thrones, not the Game of Thrones, if you just watch the Lord of the Rings uh, um, movies, the elves are always right, and they're always in the right. But like if you read the Tolkien stuff, they're killing each other, and they're making bad decisions all over the place. So um, they're not without fault either. So it's I understand you can understand why it might be a little bit more gray, and not necessarily black and white for the humans. So yeah. Anyway,
It's
yeah,
it's
yeah.
interesting. It's
Anyway,
interesting.
we've been talking for an hour and a half, so we should
Oh
probably
boy.
stop now. Yes, having maps and stopping and having maps and then looking at genealogical charts probably slows down the conversation, but it also adds context. So that's why I had them. But we'll try to have a shorter conversation next week. All right. Any other thoughts before we close out?
No, all good, all good. And I love the charts and the
Yeah.
genealogy. That thing was super
All
cool.
right. Well, did we miss anything? Let us know. So comment down below, like, share, subscribe, and we will see you next week. All right, guys. Bye.